What's up, everybody? It is officially game week. I'm Schuyler and that is Chris Frall. It's another episode of Between the Ears here on West Virginia on SI. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. We've got plenty of content coming up for you this week leading up into that Penn State game. A recap, or if you're just now joining us for the first time this season, our schedule for this show in particular, Between the Ears, will be Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday throughout the week. Sunday, I'll be on here solo. Maybe every now and then we'll get Chris on there depending on what lines up. In terms of the game schedule. We'll give our thoughts on the game. Tuesday will kind of be up in the air. We'll make of, whatever we can come up with for Tuesday. Wednesday will kind of be our keys to the game type of episode, looking at both sides of the ball. Thursday, the walkthrough game day show with Eugene, Napoleon, and myself will break down the game completely, make our predictions like we always do. And Saturday, obviously, we'll have the post-game show shortly after. So it is a jam-packed schedule for us from now until the end of the football season. And we've already talked about pretty much everything at this point. And we talked our last episode, I think it was, or 2 episodes ago, we did our game predictions. Last episode was the Big 12 predictions, where West Virginia kind of fits into that picture. Today, we're taking a broader look because it's our last chance to at the college football landscape, and that is the college football playoff, now a 12-team format. Can West Virginia sneak in? That's a possibility here. We will go ahead and go through our picks first and kind of lay out how we see this thing forming. And if we do have West Virginia, we'll give our explanation. If we don't, we'll give our explanation as to why and how close or what needs to happen for the Mountaineers to get into the CFP. So, for anyone that is kind of confused on this format, basically what it is, you have a 5+7. You have the 5 conference champions, which would be the top or the Power 4 champions, the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, SEC. They get automatic bids, and then the highest ranked conference champion from the group of 5, they also get an automatic bid, and the 7 other spots are at large bids, just like you would see in the NCAA tournament. So the first 4, this is where we're going to start, Chris. Let's go ahead and unveil our top 4. I'll let you go first since I've been blabbing here for a couple of minutes. I can catch my breath. You can go ahead and give your top 4 teams.
Yeah, I'll start with Florida State. Doing this right after the Florida State loss, still sticking with them. Week 1 overreaction. Georgia Tech's a much better team than probably given credit for.
Yeah.
But if you look at the ACC, when I got a million schedules up here,
It's hot garbage.
yeah, if you look at the ACC, Florida State has a favorable schedule. They get BC next
This upcoming
Sunday.
or
Or
yeah, 2 weeks from now.
Monday. Sorry, Monday. Then they host Memphis, which that's going to be a challenge for them. But when you get Cal, you go to SMU, Clemson's at home, and travel at Miami. So that's pretty much it as far as the ACC standard. So you just take care of business. They don't have divisions this year, so you just get in the top 2, win the championship. I think they'll be fine. Yeah, it probably looks weird seeing them at number 4 right now, but as the season progresses, all they have to do is win the conference. So I think
Side note, Chris is a closet Florida State
I'm not a
fan.
closeted Florida State fan at all. Although the reasoning behind the fan is looking more dangerous with Deion Sanders is the reason why I like them. At number 3, Oklahoma State. Saw the Big 12 preview. I picked them to win it. Beating Utah twice. I think I had them beating them twice throughout the season. Last time in the championship game. Probably a big surprise at number 2 is USC coming out of the Big 10. Lincoln Riley's quietly has a quiet team out there. There's not a lot of start impact, although Miller Moss has been in the system a couple of years. I believe he is at least a junior, maybe redshirt junior. He's been with Lincoln Riley, understands the system. Riley's a great offensive mind. Defense has a lot of questions, but it goes back to the schedule. Let me find it real quick. They have a very favorable schedule. A lot of their tough games at home, of course, they can't find it in a hurry. All right, so yeah, so they have to travel at Michigan week 3. Obviously Harbaugh's gone. Quarterback, my name just got hurt with the Vikings. He's obviously gone. They're missing a lot of pieces. Don't think they'll be bounced back. It's going to be a tough game for them. Even if they slip up, they get Penn State at home. That's it. those are their two ranked Big Ten opponents. They get Notre Dame. They start off with LSU, but those games don't matter. Just have to win the Big Ten, and I think by that time, if you when you get to that Big Ten championship, um, he'll have that thing humming. All you need is one chance, one opportunity in there, and you got to be better that day. So I kind of just like USC this season. I think that's a quiet team that can kind of jump up and Lincoln Riley remind everybody that he's still around. And obviously Georgia number one. I think that's just a no brainer. They're going to continue to reload, bring their quarterback back.
Yep.
So I don't. It's kind of hard to move off Georgia at the moment.
And don't forget too. I mean, they were undefeated last year. They lost in the ACC championship game to Alabama, and they got left out. And I know everyone's talking about Florida State and how they should have got in, and I still believe they should have got in. But you could have made a case too that hey, Georgia was undefeated and they lost to the SEC champ. They should have been in. So there's going to be a lot of motivation there for Georgia. But yeah, I'm going to go with Clemson as my number 4 team. I'm not very sold on this. Like I tried to make a case for Florida State even after just witnessing what we just witnessed against Georgia Tech. I just can't get there. DJ Uiagalelei is too erratic for me. I don't really believe Miami has enough talent around Cam Ward, even though I think he's a tremendous quarterback. You look at NC State, maybe, but they're always a team that's just kind of been good, but not good enough to win the ACC. So I'm going to go with Clemson. They've got the most talent year in and year out, outside of maybe Florida State. This year, I think it's Clemson. They need more from Cade Klubnik, but I think this is the year he makes that step. So I'm going to go with Clemson as the ACC champ at number 4. I have Utah coming out of the Big 12, winning the conference championship there. They get the number 3 seed. Number 2, Ohio State. And it pains me to put Ohio State here. You and everybody else that knows me knows I cannot stand Ohio State. And I really don't understand the hype around Will Howard because he really wasn't great at Kansas State. He was good, but it's not like he was this guy that he was the reason why Kansas State was winning and he should have been a Heisman hopeful and all that stuff. He's getting all this Heisman conversation now that he's in Columbus because, well, he's surrounded by 5-star talent. So I don't know how that one's going to work out. I don't think it's going to be some significant upgrade over Kyle McCord, who left and went to Syracuse. But I think when you look around the Big Ten, it's just that's a tough league where you're going to see a lot of teams just beating up on each other. I don't trust Michigan. I don't know if I can trust Penn State enough. So that kind of leaves me there with Ohio State, even though I don't really think they're the concrete answer. So they're number 2. If they come out of there, they deserve it. And then, like you said, with number 1, it's got to be Georgia. Until someone beats them, I think they've got to be that number 1 team. They may be the number 1 team from start to finish this year. Just looking at their schedule and the talent they have coming back, it's going to be hard to take down the Bulldogs. So that's our top 4. Now, Chris, I'll fling it back to you. You can go with your 5-12 matchup first, and then your 8-9, and then we'll come back and get mine.
All right, coming in at number 12 is the Group of 5 champion, Memphis
Uh,
Tigers.
yeah. See, I love this stuff. This is awesome. We don't have to sit here and talk about the same 4 teams every year. There's more to it.
Exactly. Seth Hannigan returned from a team that had a great season last year, so I think it's kind of a no-brainer. Group of 5. They've already have the pedigree as a team that's been in the top 25 ranking,
Yeah.
so there's not going to be a big push. Can make a statement against Florida State. Don't have to beat Florida State, but you can't lose conference games, which is easier said than done when any conference throughout the country. There's always that what happened last year kind of vibe, and all these teams are they're game planning against you, so don't get the recognition. So coming in, they will play the Ole Miss Running Rebels, like Jackson Dart, obviously like Lane Kiffin as well. They return a lot with that group. They still had the divisions. I'd probably pick them to win the SEC West. They've been close. They've been close. It's just
Yeah.
basically been Alabama or LSU gets the best of them. So I think they do enough this year to get the number 5 pick.
So I'm going to go with Penn State being my number 5 team and just
Well,
missing out by this much. I think it'll be them knocking on the door for the Big Ten title, but I think they'll just get in there at number 5. Number 12, I got Liberty, the Flames. I like Caden Salter. Jamie Chadwell's done a phenomenal job taking over for Hugh Freeze there. Obviously, the name's familiar. He was the Coastal Carolina head coach, was there and got that program going. He's now at Liberty. I think they make a ton of sense. And I mean, I just love this because before it felt like for a team out of the group of five to make it to the CFP, it wasn't just you got to go undefeated. You almost had to go undefeated once and then make another run. Like Cincinnati did, that was their only chance. They were really good the year. People forget the team they had before they went to the college football playoff. Overall, that team may have been better as a whole, and they lost a game. They went like 11-1 or 12-1. They brought a lot of that talent back, then went undefeated, got into the college football playoff. It was almost like a 2-year thing that you had to do to even get there. Now it's just, hey, you don't even have to go out and beat a Power Five team. As long as you are winning your conference championship and you're the highest ranked G5 team, you're in the dance, baby. So that's the fun about it. It makes everything more interesting, I think, when you get these types of teams in there and you could have the possible upsets. So I got Penn State versus Liberty, my 5-12. I'll go ahead and do my 8-9. So Oregon is my 8 team. My 9 seed is going to be Oklahoma State, who I believe gets to the Big 12 Conference Championship, falls to Utah rather, and finds a way to sneak into Big 12. I'm going to go ahead and kind of spoil this, but gets Big 12 two bids in in this playoff.
Yeah, I got 8 Utah. I think they win the Big 12 regular season, but lose to Oklahoma State. So they'll be up there enough throughout the season, even when they fall to get that 8. And then Oregon as my 9, Dylan Gabriel knew. Oregon doesn't have a favorable schedule, but that's a program that's been on the rise for quite a while, always in the mix. I think they're starting off 3 or 4th. They'll be up there all season. They probably won't get, I think they'll win one of those big games, but 2-loss Oregon team more likely in the top 10. So taking Oregon in.
So playing number 3 for me, Utah, will be the winner of 6, Texas, and number 11, Notre Dame. Notre Dame's probably a team that could finish much higher, but I feel like there's too much inconsistency with them. There's a lot of question marks with them on the offensive line. They lost Joe Alt, who was a first round pick. They lost their quarterback. Riley Leonard comes in from Duke. I think that they're going to be able to make enough noise to be able to get into the CFP, but they're going to be one of those bubble teams. But I think because of the brand, because of the history, they're going to want Notre Dame in there. So Notre Dame sneaks in at number 11, playing a high powered, very fun, electric offense in Texas. That's going to be a really fun matchup to see that offense versus Notre Dame's defense with the right to go play a tough physical Utah team in the quarterfinals. So that's what I have there. So 7 and 10, who you got?
LSU at 7. Another program maybe a little under the radar. I don't know since they're in the top 15, but Garrett Nussmeier there's a lot of
Yeah, a
hype
lot of people
around
like
this
him.
around this kid. Again, Chip Kelly didn't forget how to coach. He's adjusted to the SEC. And again, Alabama's not going to be Alabama, so kind of maybe buying in a little bit on Chip Kelly than I have in the past. And then Miami, my reasoning is just I'm kind of buying the hype this year. they're kind of due, and it goes back to a weak schedule. I think they only ended up.
Yep.
They'll probably end up only with 2 losses, maybe both with to Florida State. Maybe they split there in the ACC championship, but they start high enough that they're going to kind of be in the mix, because when they're going to continue to rack up wins, and for whatever reason, East Coast media is going to favor the ACC a lot, especially a program like Miami that has historically has a lot of national championships, even though it's been quite a while since they've won it, but still have some in this century. So I'm gonna take Miami sneaking in. I think that's a sneak in.
Yeah, that's an interesting game, I think for sure. I think really the hardest part of this was getting to that 10-11 range because there's so many different teams. In some instances, like I have two Big Ten, two SEC teams. Like, do you feel like you throw a third in there? Or actually, it was three. So, like, do you throw a fourth in there, or do you put in Notre Dame? Or does the ACC get a second one? But for me, I did give the ACC a second one, and that was NC State. I think they get in at number 10, playing number 7 Alabama. Don't know how that one's going to work out for the Pack, but I do think they got enough talent to get in there. Grayson McCall, Coastal Carolina quarterback transfer, comes right in. I think he'll be an immediate upgrade over what they had a year ago at the position. You know they're going to be in the mix every single year. Seems like they have been ever since Dave Dorn's been there. They're a 9+ win team. Seems like, or nine, I should say 8-9 win team every year. 9 wins will get you in this thing if you can knock on the door of the ACC title. So if they get to the ACC championship, I think they're definitely going to be in. It's just a matter of how high they can go. It obviously a lot of that depends on how many losses they have too. So we're not going to predict all this because this will take another 35 to 45 minutes if we went through and filled out this whole
Did we
thing.
do 6 and 11? I didn't do six and
Yeah, yeah.
eleven.
If you didn't go ahead and throw your 6 and 11 in,
Ohio State versus Texas.
Ohio
Ohio
State,
State comes in
Texas.
as a 6 seed. Yeah, it's Ohio State. They got tons of talent. I think Will Howard will do more than enough to keep them in it. Tough schedule. Have to go to Penn State and win. And Penn State's definitely. I know we kind of looked at the schedule. Penn State schedule. They play two ranked teams this
Yeah.
season: USC and Ohio State. That's it. So yeah, they're set up real nice. Didn't pick them because I'm not sold on Penn State, probably because I've looked into them so much as we prepare for West Virginia. But if I'm questioning if they can beat West Virginia game one, how can I pick them?
Good
Even
point.
though they always handle their business in the Big Ten outside of Ohio State and Michigan. But anyway, I'm going to take Ohio State at 6, and then at 11, Texas. Steve Sarkisian has continued to rise Texas up the rankings every single year. Quinn Ewers has felt like he's been there for about 7 seasons, understands the system. They brought in a ton of talent. I think Texas does enough as another one that kind of sneaks in the fold there. And I will say this about Notre Dame. I I think it'll be funny because I think they'll do enough to be in the conversation,
And they
but
get
they'll get left out because Memphis is the conference champion, and we're going to have that same discussion. If you would be in a conference like the ACC, where you have an easy road to the conference championship, maybe that generates another conversation for them.
in a note on Notre Dame, if you didn't know, they can't even be a top 14.
Yeah,
Even if they run the table and demolish every single buddy in their way, the highest they can be is a 5 seed.
yeah.
That's it. So, regardless, they're going to have to play that extra game until, well, I shouldn't say until because they're probably never going to get into a conference unless this thing shrinks down into two mega conferences like the NFL or the AFC and NFC, which some believe it's where it's headed to. But for now, Penn State, the highest they can be is a 5 seed. And they're doing themselves a disservice. So we'll see how long that lasts. Maybe this is a way to kind of nudge Notre Dame to do something. Probably they'll remain stubborn and not and just stay independent, but we'll see.
They won't until NBC does something. Until a TV
Yeah, that's a
says, until
large
a
TV
TV
deal they
partner
got.
says we're not paying that much money for one team.
Exactly.
Then
So again, we're not going to pick all these. We'll be here all day doing that, even though it'd be a lot of fun. Maybe we'll do that later on in the year when this thing actually gets revealed. But real quick, I want to throw up each of our brackets first. I'll throw up yours here to start us. Out of this 12-team format that you picked up, who do you see most likely winning it? Who do you see is probably the dark horse that no one's really looking at if this were to actually happen and can maybe make some noise?
I think my dark horse in there at number 2 at USC. I mean, that's such a reach.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be laughed out by October. Georgia obviously front favorite. They're my pick to win it this year. Now, if I'm going down, so if USC isn't a dark horse at number 2, uh, man, I'm gonna stick with the SEC and Ole Miss or LSU again. Kiffin always seems to be a little short. But man, once you're in the dance, you start believing. See in the NFL, how many Steelers did it for a while. 6 seed goes on to the Super Bowl. Like it's a thing that can happen in college football. People don't believe
Sure.
it, but you get a Georgia to stumble in that first game. All of a sudden, you're looking around. Like the more games you play, the more chances you have an opportunity to lose. So yeah, I mean, Ole Miss at 5 is probably not even really a dark horse, but if you take, you know, their whole history, it might be LSU, maybe not considered a dark horse either with the program history, but with coming in and kind of being left out. But I mean, it's kind of hard to say a dark horse top 10 team. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
the The biggest would probably be Miami, just because I don't think the ACC is that strong, and I just think they're going to get voted in based off logo essentially.
So
So
Memphis is not going to make a run.
I don't think so, but it is intriguing because when you think about, when Boise State came up and, everyone's always, well, Oklahoma didn't care, fill in this team, they didn't care. But what's going to be the excuse now? Because these teams will believe.
Yeah.
And if you're, yeah, you can say they overlooked them, but you just have to be better that one game. So I wouldn't be surprised if it wound up Ole Miss Memphis, Memphis winning. Memphis and Ole Miss are close. Like
Yeah.
there would be a little bit of edge for Memphis there. But Ole Miss, like, there's Memphis. So yeah, it's to me this opens up far more possibilities where kind of saw it a little bit like TCU made a run, right? Like they beat Michigan that one year. No one expected it. It threw a wrench in the thing. So yeah, it's going to happen. Like a team that's in the top four is going to lose week one. Like it will 100% happen. Whoever beats them may end up going into the national championship that wouldn't have had a chance before. And another example I like to use is that 2016 Oklahoma team that started 1-2, but by the end of the year with Baker Mayfield, they were one of the best teams in the country. They didn't lose another game.
Yeah.
There's a good chance they were in the top 10. There's a good chance that they would have made a lot of noise in this playoff format. So yeah, anything could happen. Everything that it says in the preview, we see it every year when preseason stuff kind of gets thrown out the window as the season goes along. So yeah, I think it's going to be the one of those. All the people that are hating it, teams, the blue bloods of the world probably hate it the most because it's more opportunities for other teams, and you're going to see some. I think it's going to rejuvenate a lot of fan bases, especially a place like West Virginia. That what if they don't win the big? What if they get to the Big 12, don't win it, but then now they're in the playoff? They may not host the game, but they might be travel friendly for West Virginia fans. All of a sudden, they're in the playoff, and anything could happen, especially with a guy like Garrett Green. So, yeah, you can put that formula across multiple programs around the country, and I think it's going to bring a lot more excitement to college football.
I'm interested to see kind of like what that popular upset is in these things. Like obviously in basketball, it's the 5-12. Like that's so favorable when you're filling out your brackets in March. Maybe that's the same year. Maybe it is still 5-12. But I kind of feel like it might be like that 6-11 game. I mean, you can make a case for all of them. I really feel this is going to feel not so much like a stunner as some of the stuff you see in basketball. It's like a true difference between 5-12. When you're talking a difference in 5-12 in basketball, I mean, there's several teams. You're talking 4-5 seeds, 4-6 seeds. Like there's a major
Right.
difference. Here, it's literally 7 teams or 6 teams. So it's not that wide of a talent differential. But for me, again, yeah, I'm with you with Georgia. I think they're the front runner by a mile. I don't know that there's anybody in the country that's going to be able to knock them off. I really don't. But the weird thing is, I was going to say Oregon for my dark horse, but I can't really say they're the dark horse when they would be playing Georgia in that second round if they beat Oklahoma State. So I'll probably go down a little bit and say I'll go with Texas. I mean, it's a 6 seed, but it's a team that offensively is going to be one of the best in the country. You'd like to think they'd be a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball, but if they get Notre Dame in that first round and they win at home, then they get to play Utah, who I feel like is talented. They're tough, they're physical. We know all that stuff, but they don't have the playmakers that Texas has, and I feel like they can beat them. I've already said if about Ohio State, I'm not a huge fan of, but even though I have them number two, they can win that game, so they could get on a little bit of a roll if this is how things shake out for them. But the bigger picture here is what does this mean for West Virginia? So obviously, neither one of us have them in the field. How close do you have them getting in? You have them at, I believe, at 9-3. Is that correct? Because I had them at 8-4. I have them at like the 23 to 26 range at this point. But you with the 9-3 record got to be a little bit closer.
Yeah, I'd say around 18, not much closer. I think, there'll be some conversations about the Big 12 this year. I think it's going to show its depth a little bit. And Um, I think at 9-3 they won't be deserving. If they're going to lose against Oklahoma State and lose against Arizona and lose against Penn State, you've already proven against some of the top teams that you don't belong. So I think that gets lost in a lot of rankings. We've seen it with the top four when a team got in when they had already shown that they couldn't beat a top
Yeah.
team, just based on their record. And of course, we know how kind of the politics works as well with a lot of that. But yeah, I don't think West Virginia does enough to get in. I think if you're losing against Penn State, obviously it doesn't matter. You just have to win the Big 12. So much, we kind of talked about before, so much of this game means more to Penn State with their schedule. If they stumble, you can't lose against West Virginia and expect to make it in the field, right? So I think that's where this is a much bigger game for Penn State. I think that's kind of getting lost, but it might not be because I think maybe a lot of the national media isn't putting a lot of stock in West Virginia. I think Penn State's just going to roll in that game, but well, it's a wait and see, but West Virginia is not quite there yet. And we talked about in the preview, they're just going to be a little bit short talent wise. They're still putting their defense together. They've got some young talent. So they'll be close, but they'll be short. And I don't think they'll be close getting into the playoff, just close enough that they're going to be close enough to get into maybe the Big 12 championship. And then look, tiebreakers go funny sometimes, and if they can
Yeah.
sneak in again, all you have to do is be better than them at one day, and all of a sudden, a team that if they're 9-3 and in the Big 12 championship game and just inside the top 20, all of a sudden they're going to be a top four team if they win the Big 12. So that is also what makes this very interesting. Is a team that's an underdog in a conference championship game is automatically vaulted to the top four. I think it's pretty awesome because again it goes back to the Oklahoma season where they had battled some injuries, came on strongly, all the talent was flourishing, and it should always have been based on how when it came down to schedule and everything else that they wanted to implement. They never really mentioned how good a team was playing by the end of the season. It was all one big resume, and that should count for something, and it will finally count for something.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, with me having them at 8-4, it's not happening in
Yeah,
2024. But either way, even if it's your scenario, which is the best case between our two, I mean, you're talking about a team that went from 3 or 4 losing seasons to getting to a 9-win year to getting to another 9-win year and probably playing in like the Pop Tarts Bowl or the Texas Bowl or something of value. You're making that step, and I think that's what gets lost in the shuffle. Everybody, we've done an episode on it. Playoffs or bust for West Virginia. It doesn't have to happen this year. It's not the end all be all for Neil Brown if he doesn't make the freaking college football playoff when there's 12 teams. Yes, it would be nice. Yes, the path is more there than it was before, but this is still a relatively young team when you look at the linebackers, you look at the running backs and the wide receivers. There's some new pieces along the offensive line that you got to get meshed together. It's not going to be a perfect product just yet. And I just feel like if you can get to 9 or more wins, that's another step in the right direction. However, also a lot of people look at this and say, "Oh, there's 12 teams that can get into the playoff, and or there's 12 spots available. Surely West Virginia can be a top 12 team." Well, you kind of can't look at it that way, right?
top 11.
Right. It's top 11 technically, but it's also kind of coined the Georgia Invitational. So we know Georgia's going to make it. They're number 1 or they're going to be in that top 12 somewhere. There's no way unless everything just falls out from underneath them that they're not going to make this playoff. So really there's only 10 spots up for grabs. I and of the 12 teams that I just went through, to me, the only one that I feel 100% confident in actually making it is Georgia. I think you can make a case that all of the other 11 teams could find a way to play themselves out of it. So there's a major, major gap between Georgia and I think everybody else. So it is kind of like 10 other spots are available. And you got to hope that you're in there somewhere in that top 11. But
There's
I
only
don't know.
7 at-large bids,
Yeah, that's
so
true. So maybe
get an
we shrink it
upset.
down even further because if you don't win the
It
Big
goes
12
back to kind
championship,
of like that West Virginia example. If they're 9-3 and they get in the Big 12 championship and they win, they could just be stealing a bid. You know how?
oh yeah, oh, you're more
For,
than just stealing a
like,
bid for sure.
let's say West Virginia and Utah go undefeated. They meet in the Big 12 championship. Losers in the Big 12 playoff,
Absolutely.
regardless.
Or
So
you could have
what?
the crazy
What
stuff
if
where,
Oklahoma State only has 2 losses at that point? Is that
yeah,
that's your third Big 12 team? Now that's a perfect scenario for the Big 12, right? You got 2 undefeated teams that haven't played each other all year, and then they go into the championship. That would be perfect scenario Big 12. A likelihood of that happening is probably very slim. You know, on a yearly basis. I'm not saying that couldn't happen this year because West Virginia is definitely a dark, can probably considered a dark horse to win the Big 12 at this point, but it is a likely scenario, but I think that's the only way an ACC or a Big 12 gets in three. Like I have 4 SEC teams in. That's
yeah,
probably going to be the norm for SEC, possibly 4 Big 10 or 3 Big 10 teams. Like that's more likely the norm because as we've seen, the SEC gets the benefit of the doubt, but how much of it is going to carry over? And what I mean by like when you're a top recruit, right? Like, yeah, you want to play the best and the best, but do you want to go get beat up each week in, week out? Like that's a very big concern with some of these schedules. Like you look at some of these schedules and they're playing 6, 7 top 20 teams a season. That's insane. So you could go to a Big 12 and say, okay, well, we only have to play 4 or 5 ranked teams this year,
easy
or go to the
access.
SEC and play 2 or 3, depending on the schedule. Like Big 10 could have, you have some teams that are playing 5 or 6 ranked teams. We just saw Penn State's playing 2. So it's not balanced as far as scheduling is concerned. Be interesting kind of how they handle that moving forward. Will they try to will they try to prop Georgia up and not to play some of the tough teams? Like how important do rivalries become at that point? Because at the end of the day, this is money, and
Yeah.
conferences love money. We've known that for quite a while with the conference realignment. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. And who, I, I mean, I don't think it's a reach to say SEC is always going to be a benefit of the doubt, but where's the Big Ten laying all this? How
I
well do
just
these West Coast teams adjust? Like it's going to be interesting because Oregon plays a lot of tough. Like USC got a really easy schedule. It seems like why didn't they have to play? They play Washington, but they're not playing Oregon.
yeah.
Like it's interesting that all those teams aren't playing each other since we're on the West Coast. See how it shakes out.
I just hope it doesn't kind of come back and backfire on everybody that's like, oh, this is so great for college football. Cause I mean, I'm in that boat. Like I think 12 teams, this is awesome. You extend the season for so many teams. We've talked about it umpteen times. Like if you're a team like West Virginia, you lose that first game, you're pretty much done for in terms of the national conversation, but you're really done for if you lose two. Now you could lose three, maybe even some wacky year you lose four and you win the conference and you're still in the playoff. So that's the beautiful thing about this. It's like somewhat kind of like the NFL in that your season's not really over until the season's over. Like you're still going to have a chance every single week to go out there and strengthen your resume and probably not in the Big 12, but I could see it easily happening in the ACC where there's going to be some really bad years in the ACC and you just have one top dog, whether it be Clemson, Florida State, or whoever, and everybody else is just kind of average. But if that one average team goes in there and upsets them, there you go. A 9-4 team sneaks into the college football playoff. That's going to happen. I guarantee it. It will happen over the next couple of years, and probably even more so whenever this thing expands to
Georgia
14 or
Tech
16.
proved it. We don't know how good. Like there's that first game, and everyone immediately overreaction, right? Like yes, both
Yeah.
teams had to play in Ireland, yada yada yada, but they traditionally plays at home week
Yeah.
one, right? Like they usually give it a pretty favorable game. Like it's not the end all be all for Florida State. So Georgia Tech played better that day. Great,
I
that's
just
great.
I just hope it's
It's a
not
long
the SEC
season, and
Big Ten challenge.
ACC isn't good, but Georgia Tech hasn't been that good. They have failed on consistency. Look, the coaches got them buying in. We'll have to see, but there's too much. There's going to be a lot. there's every year there's always these big statements week one. And it, like if West Virginia beats Penn State, that's great for West Virginia, right? For a lot of reasons.
But you know what
But
the narrative will be
Penn
that
State
next
has to go
Saturday if
win
that happens?
for that
It
to
won't
look
be that
really
West
good.
Virginia won the game. It'll be that Penn State lost it.
Right. But Penn State has to go prove that they're still a good team week in, week out. Well, if they finish 8-4, what's it matter? They were just another average college football team. So let the
Yeah.
season play out. Teams that are good will continue to get better. They'll continue to make adjustments. Guys will step up, guys will step in. It's a very long season. And we see it every year where, I remember when Virginia Tech beat Ohio State early in the year, and what I think they finished 7-6 that year. Just
Yeah.
got to win the day. So we'll see what happens.
Like I said, praying that it is not the SEC Big Ten Challenge where you've got a combined 8 or 9 teams from those two leagues and then pretty much one for everybody else. And then your G5. Like
It
that's
might end up in some years that way.
it probably
We know
will.
the ACC is kind of teetering right now. They don't have the best football tradition. Big 12 by and large is the better brand.
It's just gonna eat they're gonna eat
When
each
you
other
look at
up
all the
every single
brands of
week.
programs, yeah, I mean, and Big 12 will get that benefit of the doubt if they continue to win non-conference games. I don't put the pressure on West Virginia to show how good the Big 12 is in Penn State. Anyone that knows or understands college football, like West Virginia's not there yet. Yes, they can win the day, but they're not there yet. So
Right.
it's not on West Virginia. Everybody else, like you can't have Oklahoma State losing to South Alabama. Period. Like that happened
No.
last year. That's the stuff that can't go on. It's yes, you have to make the most of opportunities in the big matchups, but it's not all on West Virginia. Like go win the games you're supposed to, and then everything will take care of itself. So yeah, everyone throwing West Virginia kind of like, oh, this will show how strong it was. Well, how about Oklahoma State start off strong in the non-conference and show everybody how strong they are?
Not just
Let's not
lose
have
to
dumb
South Alabama.
upsets. Let's not
Not
have
just
dumb
lose.
upsets early in the year. So
No, not just
it's
lose to South Alabama, get their can kicked by South Alabama.
exactly. So let's pump the brakes
Yeah.
on West Virginia is going to be the saving. Like if West Virginia beats Penn State and then Oklahoma State does Oklahoma State things, like then what did that do for the Big 12? Not much because look at the
No.
rest of the group out there losing to dumb teams. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, like West Virginia does have a huge opportunity week one, but again, if they lose, it's not the end of the season. It's not time to panic.
Not at all.
It is a long, long ways from being
And the
over.
first and the second loss and the third loss doesn't even mean the season's
Right.
over. Like
Technically,
you've taken the destiny out of your hands, but you
the way
still
you
have to.
the way you should look at this, especially until they start getting to that part of future schedules where they're not playing all these ridiculous Power 5 games every single time. It's almost a kind of like a tale of two seasons, or maybe even kind of like a preseason if you want to view it as that. This is kind of the preseason for West Virginia because really, if we're being honest here, the first game that really matters for West Virginia, Kansas.
Yep,
That's the first one
that's the only
because
one that matters.
that is the best
Well,
way that
you
this
got to
team is
put Pitt
going
in
to
there.
get
You don't
into the
want to
college
lose the
football
Pitt.
playoff is
You don't
by
want to lose.
having a strong Big 12 record.
You don't want to lose the Pitt. So that's
I
an
mean,
important thing.
no, you don't want to, but just saying if you do, your season doesn't start technically
Yeah,
until the
like
next week.
it's funny. You can lose the first three non-conference games or win the rest, and you're a top four team. And
Yeah,
that's including like you can lose Albany. It doesn't even matter. Like you can just throw Khalil Wilkins and every true
yeah,
freshman out there. It does not matter. Like it literally doesn't. You have to go win the Big 12. Of
yeah.
course, now you're throwing all your chips in to win the Big 12 championship
Exactly,
and not
exactly.
giving you a chance in that larger bid. But yeah, it really is. It just like I said, Oklahoma went 1-2. Who they lose to? They lost to Houston that
If you're two and
early in
one
the season.
through these first 3 games, just say it, chalk holds. You lose to Penn State, you beat Albany, you beat Pitt. You're in great shape.
Yep.
You're in terrific shape. Now, depending on what that Penn State game looked like, you might be concerned about the future in the Big 12, 9 games that you're going to have. But if they play tight and they play competitive all the way through the final horn, like then yeah, you're going to feel pretty good heading into conference play when things truly, truly matter because that's your ticket really to the college football playoff. And as we've said before, yeah, it'd be great, if they got to the Big 12 championship, they won it, they got the automatic bid. But if you get yourself in a position to where You're 9-3. You get into the Big 12 championship. You have a good showing, but maybe you fall short. Who knows? You might be able to get in at 9-4. There's no telling with how this thing's going to fall out. We have no idea. Before, it'd be weird to see a two-loss team, and really weird to even start thinking about talking about a three-loss team in a four-team playoff format. Now it's going to become the norm. You're going to see multiple teams with this. So it's not over until the fat lady sings late November, or really first week into December, when the Big 12 championship was played, and we'll see how the chips fall. So that's going to do it for this week's, well, not this week, today's episodes of
Right. I want to
between.
add one more thing.
Yeah, go for
I'm looking forward to argument from the 9 and 10 teams that they should get the home field advantage. And of course the
it.
teams 13 and 15 that should have got in over Memphis because they didn't play anybody, or Liberty or whatever, because they didn't play anybody all year. Like, these are the
You've
arguments
got
that's going to make
arguments coming from
everybody.
all different angles now.
There's going to be there's more, again, there's more teams involved now.
Yeah.
So for people thinking that this is going to kill the death of college football, no, this is going to make it a lot more fun. A lot more fan bases are going to be engaged because, again, we just kind of talked about the brands in the Big 12. Oklahoma State, great fan base. Texas Tech, great fan base. Arizona's climbing slowly, pack those teams. But when you start getting in, like, they're going to be in the mix now. Like, if they're
And
going
why
to
why would you
projecting
want us
where they're going
continue
to
to
be,
watch the same 4 or 5 teams every year? This is an opportunity to get other teams involved.
right?
And plus, it's another what, 2 games, 2
So
round of games that you're going to
that's the
get.
other thing is, let's say Georgia just continues to win it. Well, who cares? Now you had other teams that got to host an extra game. You had other team programs that feel like they're in the mix. You got all now you're gonna have more teams gunning for Georgia and
It's a
preparing.
recruiting pitch.
Yeah, it's you've engaged a lot more quality fan bases in the conversation, other than just a hand, and that to me makes us a lot better situation. And I think it, like I said, it's going to start evening out because, yeah, you're probably going to have the programs of the world. Like it wasn't Georgia, right? It was just Alabama a few years ago.
Yeah.
So now it's Georgia. Saban's gone. How long do they keep this going? How many other programs can pull away and say, well, you ain't got to go play Tennessee every year. You ain't got to go play, a top 25 team every week. Come over here. You just have to play 3 or 4 of them, and we have a nice path to the college playoff. We can do it here too. So yeah, it's going to be fun, and
Well,
especially at a place like West Virginia, who have historically punched above their weight class, and obviously can make noise if they continue in the right direction.
and we talked about it off air before too, how Kirby Smart was kind of, bitching about how, talent's not as good as it was coming out of high school and all that stuff. Well, that's because they're not being able to keep some of these guys. They're going into the portal because they have an opportunity to play elsewhere. And some of those 4 and 5 stars that they would normally get, they're going to other places so they can play earlier there rather than come to Georgia and have to go up against other 4 and 5 stars. This is going to, I really start, I believe with the transfer portal and the NIL thing now in place and the 12-team playoff, there's going to be more kids that are probably more open, that are those highly ranked kids that are, you know what, West Virginia, let me go there. Let me try
Yeah,
going to Oklahoma
the
State. Let me try to
defensive
go
back.
to North Carolina. Like, there's going to be more of those kids than before because they were all trying to scratch and claw to get into those 5 or 6 teams that were always fighting for those top 4 spots. There's 8 more spots now. There's going to be more kids that want to go play at other places or be more open to going other places.
Yeah, you get a top 10 defensive back in the country looking around and says, you know what? I saw what Shadon Brown did with Beanie Bishop in one year. I saw what he did with Garnett Hollis Jr. in one year. I saw what he did with Chuck. Let me go take my chances for a couple of years with
What
him
Garnett
at
said
West
the other
Virginia.
day,
Yeah, like, let me
he
take
got
my
more
chances.
opportunities. He's going to get more opportunities in the Big 12 than he
Yeah,
did at Northwestern in the Big 10. They don't throw the ball in
absolutely.
the Big 10.
So that, I mean, stuff like that matters. Like, they're already like in
Yeah.
West Virginia's not alone. There's a lot of great coaches out there that may not get the opportunity to get a kid like that because the Sabans of the world were there. But now other kids are going to start looking around, especially NIL evens things out where you can, hey, you don't have to leave to get money, or hey, it's not under the table anymore. Where look, Georgia was accused of giving Fred Taylor $50,000 and he went to Florida anyway. Like, these things happened under, like, you don't want to admit it. Like, SMU got the death penalty for what Texas was doing at the same time. Like, these things were happening, like it or not. It's out in the
Now it's
open
all
and it's
legal.
illegal. And I'm not going to comment whether West Virginia was paying. Like, I don't know, but if they were paying players, they definitely weren't paying much of Alabama's of the world. So it's kind of even thing. And I'm not saying they are now, but now that a program that was trying to hide it is embracing it and now gives them a better opportunity. So
The
it's
one, the
you're going to see
last,
more parity, and I think probably the first few years it'll be a top four team, but you're going to start seeing it's going to be a 6, 7
yeah,
because really 5 through 12, it's going to be those four teams that host. They're going to look at it as the four teams that host, and then really the seeding is not going to matter because whether if it's a 5 or the 8 or yeah 5 or the 7,
just get in.
right, 5 or 8, it's not really going to matter at that point, right? If they're a 5 or an 8 because
Yeah.
you're hosting. So it's going to be they're going to try to match teams up. We've seen that before. Like that doesn't really matter. It's really who's going to be hosting. It's going to. I think it's going to be a lot more entertaining than people think, and I think it's going to bring a lot more parity. And it's definitely you're going to see more national champions, probably from different conferences. I think SEC it'll still be SEC heavy, but I think you're going to start seeing maybe a Big 12 or an ACC come back into the fold.
Yeah, and you also got to keep in mind too, those four teams, they're going to be sitting for an extra week, and you got to wonder what that does compared to a team that's just played the week before. So there's that to think about. The last thing I'll say before we get out of here is I think with this whole new era that we're now in with the 12-team playoff, combined with the portal NIL, I feel like there's probably going to be two or three, but definitely one team out there that no one's really looking at. They haven't looked at for a long, long time as being a serious contender that's going to emerge out of nowhere because of this new field, and it's going to blow up. And you West Virginia fans, you just better hope it's not UCF because they're in a great position right now moving forward. They're going to put a ton of money into their facilities. They're in a recruiting hotbed. They're going to get the kids out of Florida that Florida State and Florida don't want or Miami don't want. And again, they have a much easier well, I shouldn't say easier, but I think that the access is more so there in the Big 12 than it is for kids that want to go to Florida in the SEC. And if you're in the ACC with Florida State, you can maybe make that argument, but UCF's going to be there to battle with them. So UCF is a program to watch. There's going to be other ones that like that. They're going to blow up and have a lot more success nationally than they have before because of this new field. Maybe West Virginia is one of them. So that's going to do it for us here today. For Christopher Hall, I'm Schuyler Callahan. Thank you guys for watching another episode of Between the Ears. We will be back on Tuesday and Wednesday this week before Eugene joins me on Thursday for the Walkthrough Game Day Show, breaking down West Virginia and Penn State. Smash that like button here on YouTube. Give us a subscribe to our channel at West Virginia on SI. Follow us on X at SI_WVU. We'll see you back here on Tuesday.